This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we will talk about SOQL queries today. SOQL means Salesforce Object Query Language. We use these queries to retrieve the data. And what data? Let me explain it a bit more. SOQL stands for Salesforce Object Query Language. So we use to retrieve the data, Salesforce data. Means when we want to get the data from any object from Salesforce object like account, contact, or any custom object. If you want to get the data from these objects, then we can put the query, that is SQL query, and we can get the data, and then we can perform the transaction. So, for example, let's say if I ask you to display 10 or 20 or 50 records on UI, then you can write a query, you can put a query, and you can get the records. So let's deep dive into the queries. Let me create one class, Apex class, SOQL queries CTRL controller. Okay, let me define one constructor inside this. So I can either write the queries inside the constructor, or I can create a method. So I'll do in both the ways. So let's say I want to display or I want to retrieve the account data, and I also want to send that data from this class to any page or any component or any other class. For that, I have to define one public property, public attribute variable, public list account, that can be of type list or on normal as object account. That's if you want to deal with multiple data. In that case, you can declare list account. So let me represent it here. So we will make a query inside the constructor. How we can put the query? Select is a keyword which we use this keyword to retrieve the data, and we will be going to select certain fields. So when we want to select certain fields, we need to use select and the field names. Field names like it can be any field which is available on account, ID, name, it can be phone, it can be industry, rating, from account. So if I debug it, I print it. In Java we use system.out.println in Java. In C we use printf, and in Salesforce we use system.debug. System.debug to print any data, any value. So whatever I have written in single quotes, that is my static text. Just for the, you can say, this is the help text for me, nothing else. But this will be when I'm appending it with the help of plus icon. So this will be the dynamic data. So let's execute it. Go to the edit, not edit, debug log, debug. Click on open execute anonymous window. Here we will instantiate the class, means we'll create the instance of our class, and this obj class is just a reference variable name. It can be anything. It can be obj ref. You can put anything, whatever you want. As we are going to call the constructor, then when we instantiate the class, our default constructor will call automatically. That is the property. Now let's execute it. and see the debug logs. You can see we got the data from account. There should be 10 account records. If we want to check the size, then we can use another log to check how many results are there in the list. Again, system.debug list size. We have one function of list size. We will use this. So whatever the data set we have, it will be going to give us that data, or the size of the records which are stored in this list. So let's see what we will get it. So list size 13 right now, because we are querying the records, and in account table or object we have only 13 entries. Let's say if I want to limit it, I don't want like all the records, because in your org there can be 1,000 records or 5,000 records. So I don't want 1,000 records or 5,000 records, but I want, let's say, 10 records, or I may want to 15 records or 20 records. For that, what I can do, I can limit my records. So how I can limit, I have one keyword again, limit. Let's say I want only 10 records. I can limit those here by putting limit 10. Let's execute it again. This time I will have the list size 10, because I had already restricted it up to 10. You can see. Now let's say if you want to restrict in some other ways, you can do that. Let's say I want those records where industry is not equal to null, or where industry, in this industry field we have some values. So I will be going to use where clause, where industry equals is not equals to. Either we can use this symbol null. That is one way. I'll let you know another way as well. So let's execute it first. This time we may have lesser records as compared to 10 even. It will depend on the size or the number of records which contains or which have industry value. See the debug logs. Still we have 10 records. That means all the industries have some value. Let's say if I want like a rating shouldn't be null, I can put like end rating. Another way to check is not equal to null is this. So now I'm checking two conditions with the help of end. Means I want only those records where industry and rating have some values. Means if any record is having industry and rating null, we won't get those records. Let's execute it again. This time you can see we got 7 records. Means if I talk about combination of industry and rating, we have only 7 records in the system where we have data in both the fields on account object. So this is how you can put the limit. You can put certain conditions in where clause. Let's say this time I will be going to put or. Means it will, or it may return 10 or more than 10 records, because it will check all the records where either industry is not equal to null or rating is not equal to null. Means if any field have any value, it will return you the result. So again we got the 10 records, because it won't give you more than 10 records. Reason is we have limit here, we are limiting it up to 10 records. That's the reason. So maximum can be 10, minimum can be depending on the where clause conditions. So this was the generic condition or generic query, a simple query. As I have declared another attribute, if I want to fill out this attribute, means it will have only one account record, single account record. It can have multiple records, one record or thousand records or more than that. If I want to assign some value to this, either directly I can make the query, but I will go and I will put data from here. I will take out the data from zero position and I will debug that. Execute it again. We will get the single account record or one account record in this instance. So you can see we are getting account ID, name, phone, industry, and rating. So these are the fields which I had put into the query and I'm getting those here. As I said, that was a simple query. We may need to build complex queries. Complex queries means we may need to get the data from child to parent or parent to child. Let's say we have account, for example, Burlington Textiles, and what I want to get all the contacts which are under this account. This account means the Burlington Textile, or I want to get all the account along with their contacts, and there may be 1,000 account, and under those 1,000 accounts there may be 5,500 contacts. It will depend on the data set, which data set you have in your org. And one account can have multiple contacts, as we have the relationship between account and contact. Contact is the child side, account is the parent side. We have lookup, that is a standard relationship which we have in Salesforce between account and contact. Again, like one account can have multiple contacts, but single contact, like one contact will have only one account. Now let's build the query, put the query. How we can put? Go back to the developer console here. This time I will create one function, one method, public static void get records. Here what I will do, I will build one query where I will return account and rated childs, rated contacts. So how? Let me define one list in local, I mean inside this method only. List accounts equals to, now see how we can put a parent child query, or how we can get parent and child in the same query. So select is a keyword to select the fields ID, comma name, comma phone, comma let's say rating, comma let's put the query on contact. Select ID, comma name, comma phone, comma email from contacts. So this is the child query which we had put here, and it will be like we will be treating it as a normal query or one field. Let's say if I remove that, my query on parent will be like this. And if I want to put this query, the child query, by putting the comma, and I will put my child query. Again, it is same, select ID, name, phone, email from contacts from account, means that is the outer query. Let's save it. And okay, if I want to see the data, I won't be able to get all the related records, or I want to be able to debug those. Actually, I will get those records, but I won't be debugging those. I'll tell you the reason and how I can debug and how I can see those. This time, one more challenge is we have to call this function by the class name. Reason is this is the static method we have. This is the static method, get records. So we will call it by the class names. Class name is SOQL queries controller that, and we will make the call by putting like class name dot method name. So here click on execute, highlight, click on debug. So here we got all the records, account and contact, but we cannot see those contacts in this query or in this debug basically. So how we can see those? For that we have to iterate over this account and we need to reach to this, to these contacts. How we can iterate those? Let's put the loop we use to iterate over the collection or the multiple records. So this is the list where we want to iterate, and type of this list is account. Here we will to put the type, that is the variable. You can put any name here, and the account list. So this list will be returning the instance of account, means account one by one. First account, second account, third account, like that. And what we want to get all the contacts. So let's create one list. That is a list of contacts where I will store the contacts which I am getting in the parent child query. I will simply add those here. We have method dot add objacc. This instance I will get these contacts here from keyword. You can see I'm adding those, and I will debug those here. Actually I'm this one also return the list of records. List of contacts means one account can have multiple contacts. So I have to write here add all. When you want to add list inside list, you need to use add all function. Again make a call to this function here. Check the debug. We got here account, and from the child query we got the contacts. Let's say this was the parent to child. I can say parent to child. Let's see, if I want to build child to parent query, means I want to get accounts which are account which is related to any contact. I will call it child to parent query. How I can get, this time I have to put this on the contact side. Let me define another list, child to parent. So let me write the query here. I will put the query on contact select id comma name comma phone, and here if I want to get the account fields, let's say account id, let's say account name, account dot name, account dot phone comma account dot any field which is related to account from contact. I can debug it now. Let me put another debug here. Child to parent list contact and plus this one. It's saved. Let's make a call. Check for debugs. You can say child to parent, we are getting the data, but again challenge is same here. We are getting only account id, not the account name, account phone or industry, as we had put those fields into this query here. Let's say if I want to get this account name or phone, we have to iterate on this. So how we can iterate? Let's put another loop. This time we will put loop on contact. I mean, like we will be going to iterate from this list child to parent, and type of this list is contact, so we will put it on contact. Let me get the account fields. Let's put debugs here. Obj, let's say account name, if we want to get the account name. So we will use this reference variable dot the fields. Let's say this field, or let's say you want to get either name or industry as well. Industry, obj this field dot account dot industry, this complete value. Let's check for the logs. Let it save. Okay, it's saved. Now, okay, just execute this function. Check for debugs. We have got these many records because we are querying almost all the contacts. We hadn't put any limit. We can limit those to concise the output limit. Let's say 5, if I want to get only 5 records. Let's execute it again. Check for the debugs. Now we got the 5 records: account, age, communication, industry, electronics, age, communication, electronics, Burlington Textile, Pyramid, Dickinson. Let's say again I want to limit on the basis of some field from account side, or I want to put this either name or the ID. I can copy this ID. Rather than limit, I can do where ID equals to. So right now I'm putting the hard code ID, but this is not the part of best practice. To remove this hard code values, we have custom labels, like we can put it into the custom label and we can use this ID. So again, let me execute it, debug, and you can see this time we have got only one account, single account, because we are restricting it with the one contact. As I said, one account can have multiple contacts, but one contact will always have one account, not multiple accounts. So that is all about like queries, building the queries. Simple query, we have built this simple query on the same object here, and then later on we have added some clause. We had limited it. Then here we had put the query like parent to child. We were getting all the child records from the parent, means child can be your related list or related objects. Then we had built another query, child to parent. There are three different kind of queries which we had put it here. Then we have seen how we can iterate over the collection, over the list of data, multiple records. In case of parent to child, means when we had put the query on the parent side, and we want to get or iterate all the childs from that query, we want to retrieve those. How we can put, on the other hand, let's say if we had put the query child to parent, and in that query we are retrieving or we are getting the data, or we want to actually get the data of the parent, like what all fields or what all values we are getting by that query or with the help of that query. we have iterated over here. We are iterating here, and we are like for debugging it, or debugging the complete list, complete contact list, where we have child to parent data, and we have also iterated to get the actual record of the parent, or record from the account here, as we had put the query select id name phone account. Name phone are the field of contacts, but this is the field from the parent side. A part of this, these are the fields from the parent side. As we are referencing it, we are doing dot account dot name account dot phone account dot industry to get those records, and here we are debugging those. We are printing the values of name and industry to check what value we have got, or what is the name of account and the industry on that particular contact which we had put into the query. So that is the query which we put. This is all for the today's session. Now I can answer all your queries if you have. Let me stop the recording.